Hi, I'm Yvonne Webb of Action Coach Business Coaching.
And I'm Stuart Clark, the Managing Director of Russell & Russell, and we're the co-hosts and sponsors of the Glasgow Business Stories podcast. If you're enjoying Glasgow Business Stories, then why not subscribe to the channel? There's new videos dropping every fortnight with great business stories from great business owners, so we don't want you to miss out.
So Ryan, welcome to Glasgow Business Stories. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me on.
So let's just get started with you telling us who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm Ryan Clark. I'm the founder and CEO of Safer Group, and we're a temporary security specialist. So we develop and deploy security systems for temporary sites, mostly construction at the minute. But we're also doing some public space security. We do some security for solar farms, wind farms, and we monitor those systems and respond to any activations. So that's what we're doing today.
Okay, so I guess it'd be good to understand more of your systems. Automatically, I'm thinking of those little black boxes that you see on construction sites that means that you don't have to have a security guard there. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's right. So our approach is our products are called Safer Pods. So we have a Safer Pod S1 through to an S7, and they are all fully autonomous. So they are powered by solar. In the case of the S4, it's got solar power and a methanol fuel cell in there for backup power. Then they've got integrated within them sensors that are detecting for motion, smoke, CO2, and then depending on the sort of nature of the site will dictate what sensors we deploy to a project. Then outside the working hours, or sometimes during working hours, we'll be monitoring those sensors. Any activations that we get, we'll go back to our control room. We've got our own 24-hour control room. The operators will review the alarms, handle it in line with the assignment instructions, and then they'll either dispatch security, dispatch police, contact the customer, and we're doing that constantly, 24 hours a day, 365 the whole year.
And so before we get into the ins and outs of that, because I'm really interested to hear more, how did you get to where you're at? What's the backstory?
So I wanted to be an engineer when I was deciding what I was going to do after school, and I got to an HND in mechatronics engineering. I did a couple of weeks at university and realised that there was far more talented people than me, and just in that class that I was in. And so I remember thinking that if that is representative of just this year that I'm in, what is that like in the real world? I didn't really want to be a below average engineer in a very competitive market, and I always had an interest in business. So even from a young age, I was always doing various different things. And I decided I would try and make an iPhone app, because it was at the time iPhone was a big thing, and as was iPhone applications. So I tried to make an iPhone app. Took a job which was supposed to be a temporary job as a security guard, and I used the money from that to pay for the development of the app. The app didn't really work. I think the app actually worked itself, but I just didn't have the experience or the commercial know-how to make any money from it. So I then kept working within security. I got some promotions within that company that I was working with, so I got some exposure to the frontline element of it, working as a security guard. Then I got some exposure to the management, doing operations. Then eventually got some exposure to the commercial side of it, doing sales. And around about the same time, there was a transition happening within the security industry, where it was moving from man guarding services, so a man on a site, and it was then transitioning more towards a technology-based approach, so having CCTV towers remotely monitored in a control room, and that interested me. And at the same time, I noticed that those man guarding providers were delivering a security service, so there was a service-based element to it, and a lot of the companies who were delivering technology as a solution for security were taking a plant hire approach. So the service element was sort of falling away, and they were more focused on how many units do you want, for how long, where do you want them, and turn up, install them, and forget about it. And I thought there was an opportunity to build a service-based security company that happens to use technology to deliver that service. And that was really the idea that started off what was then Safer Scotland. It's now rebranded as Safer Group.
And how long had you worked as a security guard or within security for at that stage?
So I worked as a security guard for about a year, and then I moved into a management role. I did that for about a year and a half. Then I did sales for about 2 years, and then there was a short period of time where I worked as a security consultant, which was probably another year and a bit.
Was that all for the same business?
No, the last part of it, I did that for a couple of companies. Where I was doing it was commission only sales, basically. And then eventually I used that last year and a half to sort of save up the money that I needed to get started on my own.
So was it always a case of you wanted to start on your own, or did you think, because you're in those businesses already, did you think, actually, I could take this and roll it out in here, or was it just a case of, actually, no, I want to do this myself, I want to be my own boss?
I knew I always wanted to have my own business. I wasn't sure if it was going to be security. And I guess thinking back on it, probably it would have been the case that if I was working in a pizza shop, I would have ended up starting a pizza shop. And it got to the point that I had built up a number of years of experience in that space. And the timing was on my side. I was in the right place at the right time, I guess. And the fact that I had that engineering curiosity and a bit of an understanding of how these systems worked helped. I could see immediately that the technology was a far better way to deliver that service than a person on site. Because I had done the job working on site, I knew how hard it was to actually, monitor what was going on. If you're a security guard and you're working on your own, covering a big site, you can only see what's going on wherever you're at any given time. And so I knew that the technology would do a far better job of detecting any intrusion onto a site, recording the evidence, and at the same time, it was commercially sensible to do that because it was less of a cost to the customer. So it was obvious to me that long term, that was going to be the direction that it took. By that point, I understood it. I wanted to have my own business, and it seemed like an obvious step to take.
Did it feel like a risk at that time? Or?
Probably not as much as it should have felt. Yeah, I'd sometimes think I was sort of just the right amount of naivety to sort of get started. I remember, I think it's always a risk when you're starting a business. I did remember weighing it up and basically concluded that I would regret it if I didn't have a go. And I always knew I could go back to working a normal job again if it didn't work out. But yeah, I was pretty confident that it would be, it would work. Yeah.
So take us back then to the early days and setting up. What preparation did you need to do to set up the company? Where did your first customers come from?
It was pretty easy to set up the company. I think it's probably too easy to set up a company. So the company was set up pretty quickly. And I guess that the approach that I took was I had some pretty established competitors, and I had just me and an iPad, and so I tried to compete on responsiveness to any inquiries. In fact, there was no inquiries at the time, so any opportunities that I was able to get. So I would be driving around, literally walk into construction sites and ask if I could quote for the security. Call up construction companies and ask them how to get on the list for tendering for any projects, and trying to get somebody to give us a chance, really. And and I think I was very transparent and honest about where I was at. I didn't try to pretend that I was more established than I was. I didn't. I was very upfront about the fact that I'm starting a security company. This is what I'm trying to do, and I need some customers basically to give us a chance to do that. And I was quite lucky that I had some customers that knew that it was just me, knew that I was going to be getting subcontract engineers to go and install the systems. I then monitored them myself at night, which was an experience. And I tried my best, put the customer at the front of everything. I was really honest with them, what I could do, what I couldn't do, and that was the best approach that I could have took by far. Yeah.
You must have had some sleepless nights if you're monitoring them yourself.
Sleepless years, I think, was probably a bit. I really. I probably don't know if I could do it now, is the honest answer. That first year, 2 years, I literally had. I don't remember. I'd have a system set up in such a way that an alarm would come through from a site, and it would set off these speakers that would wake me up to check it, and that's manageable when you've got maybe 10 sites or something like that. Then it quickly gets to a point where you're not sleeping, and then so what you're doing is then you're up all night monitoring the alarms because you can't risk missing an alarm. So then your sleep is in the morning when the people come in to work, and you have a few hours of sleep, but then you need to wake up before everybody stops working because you need to try and generate some business. You need to do the invoicing, you need to send out emails, you need to order equipment. So I went through too long of a period where I was sleeping for a few hours a day, from like 9 o'clock in the morning to maybe 10:30 in the morning, and then I wake up, do some stuff, then another hour, and then then I'm monitoring cameras again the whole night, responding to it. I could have outsourced the monitoring sooner than I did, but I was trying to collect the resources that I needed to grow it further. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
What was the tipping point to them actually starting to outsource? Had you hit the amount of money that you needed, or is it just I probably too tired? I can't.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. It got to the point where you're putting. It got to the point that I knew I couldn't do it correctly, and then you're risking the sort of credibility of the company at that point. And if I compare that to how we monitor systems now, it is incomparable. And so there just gets to a point where you're like, well, we're putting the whole company at risk here if we keep doing it this way. So that was when I had to go and get somebody else to do it.
And were those first units kind of off the shelf, or were they bespoke, kind of that you'd designed?
No, they were. Everything was off the shelf in the first few years. So I would go and survey the site, design a solution on paper, what that should look like. And then when the customer would accept the proposal, we would then go and buy the kit. And it would be a fixed install. So it would typically be a couple of engineers on site for a few days to install it. And one of the issues with that is that it's not really scalable. So every installation is a bespoke design, bespoke kit. And then you've got engineers on site for days at a time to install it. And the other challenge with that is it's quite hard to separate your value as a business and your identity as a business when you're using off-the-shelf equipment, which anybody can buy. So as soon as it was possible, I knew we had to make a product that would allow us to scale so we could install it quickly. And also a product that captured our values as a business and what was important to us. And that's when we started off with the SaferPod S1.
So with the SaferPod, then, what are the key differences between what you've designed and what the off-the-shelf product was?
Well, at that point in time, there was other companies in the sector that had created a product that was battery powered, rapidly deployable, and did a similar function. So the concept itself wasn't mine; it was already established in the market. There had been a period of time that had passed since when that concept was sort of first established, and the technology hadn't really moved on much from that. So there was a couple of things that I thought we could improve upon it. The first one was the modularity. So we made it modular, so that allowed a single engineer to deploy it safely. The second one was the image quality. So we wanted to get better images out of the alarms that we generated, the reliability of the detection. So sort of legacy systems, their false alarm rate was tied to the sensitivity of the detector. So you could have a situation where the system's supposed to detect at, let's say, 10 or 15 metres, but at maximum sensitivity. And maximum sensitivity would often mean too many false alarms. So those companies would be in a situation that have to reduce that sensitivity, and it's now no longer doing 15 metres detection, it's doing 2 metres or 3 metres. And so we worked with a company that's got a very good outdoor detector that allows it to detect reliably at a distance without the false alarms. The user experience was much better. We used solar panels and rechargeable batteries, so we were not constantly replacing disposable batteries. And that was basically the essence of it, and that allowed us to and also the look of the product. We wanted to. I think we were probably the first in the sector that spent a lot of effort on how the product looked, because the first job of the system is to act as a deterrent. So it has to look like a credible security system, and spent a lot of time and money on getting that looking right. It was a worthwhile investment.
And so that was S1 pod. You got S7 now, is it? Is that like different generations? Is that adding different things in each time, or are they doing different functions?
They've got different functions. So the two most common products that we use is the S1 and the S4. So the S1's more suited towards asset protection. So if you've got a bit of a remote area in a project that's got some machines there, then an S1 or a couple of S1s can protect that asset. So the S1 is sort of like our entry level solution. The S4 is a step up, so it's got all the features and functions that an S1's got, but it's also got a mast on it with bispectrum thermal cameras. So those bispectrum thermal cameras are really good for perimeter protection. So if you've got let's say a large site, you don't want to protect that site with multiple S1 units, because it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be an effective way to do it. So you would instead have, let's say, a Saferbird S4 there, and the thermal cameras are like the gold standard for perimeter protection. Anybody coming over that perimeter is going to light up very quickly on the thermal image, and so it allows us to have a range of tools that we can use depending on the sort of makeup of the site, and most of the time it's using a mixture of them. So sometimes the S4 at the perimeter, and then within the site some of the smaller units.
So once you'd kind of stepped back from monitoring at night and had free time, was your job then developing these pods, or was it still at that point still driving the sales? And
I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, I think it was probably a case of driving. Yeah, it was probably still customer, trying to win new business. I've sort of built the business in a way that I was constantly trying to put myself out of a job. So as soon as I got too busy doing a particular thing, I knew that was the time to go and get somebody else to do that. And quite early on, I sort of really depended upon customers trusting me to give us a chance. And so it took a while before I felt comfortable handing that bit of it over to other people. So I would have other people doing some of the compliance side of things, then eventually helping with invoicing and things like that. And then I guess my focus sort of shifted towards trying to build the branding side of it, trying to capture all the things that helped us in the beginning into some sort of brand and culture, so that it was not just me and people could trust the brand instead of me. And so it was put a lot of time and effort into trying to get that, to try to get the essence of that and force it, because it does take a bit of sort of force to get it going. And then eventually it did progress into trying to work on the products and make sure, from a functional point of view, it's pretty easy to make the products do what they do, but making sure they're well done and they're polished and refined and takes a bit of effort, to because the temptation is always there to just, that's good enough and just release it. So I was, spent a bit of time on making sure it was refined, is probably a good word for it.
So you're nearly 10 years in. That's next year will be your 10th year. So congratulations. That's a big milestone. At what time in that 10-year period did you know this is going somewhere? I'm going to be able to scale this. How far in were you?
I honestly don't know. I think it's pretty incredible for me that 10 years has passed, because there's not been any. There was never at any point a day which was different from the day before it, and so you get this sort of series of days that are pretty much all blended into the same thing. And it's only really when you stop at a point in time and look back that you go, well, we've actually came a long way. Even just now talking about the monitoring, it's incomparable, but I don't remember any one day where it shifted from that to the way it is now. I guess there was some important points. I think when we started being able to hire people that I knew were really good, talented people within our sector, that's when I sort of started to feel a bit of a relief, because okay, it's now no longer clients just trusting me. I'm now able to put the people into the company that will do justice to what we're actually trying to do. So that probably was an important point. When we released the SaferPod S1, we got a lot of positive feedback on that product very quickly. We exceeded our projections on sales by quite a bit. So I knew then that we had a good product with that system, and I think that was probably when I thought, right, we can actually have a real good go at this. Was when we got that first product done.
And while COVID might have been bad for a lot of other businesses, I'm interested in how it was for you, because I guess my sense is it might have been an upturn.
Yeah, COVID was a very strange period. So I think, like everybody, it was like very uncertain, and it also coincided. It was probably around about the same time when I actually started bringing like the first group of people into the company, and I remember feeling like a real responsibility on how to navigate that, because now it's not just me that depends on the company; it's other people that depends on the company, and there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of what is it going to mean for our clients. And who's a I can't remember the name now. It was a key worker, I think it was. Who's a key worker? Because we had to get out and maintain these security systems, and it wasn't clear to us at the time that we were allowed to go out and do that. So then you start thinking, well, if these systems aren't working, where's the liability lie? We can't get out and look after them, and so there was a whole lot of stuff to deal with at the time. It quickly became clear that we were on the sort of top of the list of companies that people were calling for help, and then it sort of changed it. All right, we've got a lot of opportunity here. How are we going to make sure we get paid? that was the other element of it, and so I had to have some sort of commercial conversations with some of our customers to say, right, here's what we're doing, but we need to make sure we're getting paid to keep this operating. And after a period of uncertainty went past, I guess it is fair to say that we probably performed well as a business during COVID. And security is one of those industries, I guess, where you've got it's an industry that does well in good or bad times. You might change what you're doing or who you're doing it for, but there's always a need for security in any economic environment or any situation. So, but that was a big test back then, COVID and navigating that.
And did different markets open up then, rather than being your...
Yeah, we there was a lot of void properties, so a lot of commercial spaces that normally would have people working in them that were now void and vacant. So we did a lot of void property security, a lot of inspections, a lot of mobile patrols going and inspecting properties to make sure they were safe. We worked with some clients on fever detection systems. So we had thermal cameras that we would normally use for detecting a person. Those thermal cameras can also read a temperature. So we programmed them to be able to detect if someone's temperature was above a certain measurement. And we could also use those cameras to detect if somebody was wearing a face mask or not. So all of a sudden, we had an opportunity where we could help customers put forward a solution that enabled them to work or return to work in a safe way. So we did that, and that opened up some opportunities. And it was just it got us into the habit, I guess, of finding solutions to problems as they came up. And some customers have not forgot that. And if they've got a problem, they'll come to us again and ask if we can do anything to help.
And just, you mentioned a couple of times, so I'll just go back, you talked about brand and values. At what point did you start working on them? Like, was that from day one you said, right, I want to have this? Or was it once you started to bring those people in, then you kind of had time to think about it?
I think I was always aware of like the importance of brand. And the first name that we had, Safer Scotland, was really powerful in Scotland. It actually was owned previously by the Scottish Government and the police, and they had let that expire and the trademark expire. And I had actually purchased that when I was in college, so years before. I used to buy and sell domain names as a way to make money. And then when it came time to actually, I was thinking, what should I call this security company? I went, let me check the domain names that I bought, and Safer Scotland was there. And I guess I got a taste of how important a brand is, because when I would call up companies to cold call for business, and I would say, it's Ryan from Safer Scotland, there was something about that name that carried some credibility that allowed us to get put through a lot of the time. But then it became obvious that was a limiting factor for us. Obviously, it limits us geographically to Scotland, and then the term safer can mean a lot of things. So it's quite broad, and so I stuck with the name Safer, and then kept in group there to try and prepare us for the future. And then it was a case of how do we create an identity that works well in security, what is important in security. And I'm a big believer that the most important thing in security is trust. And so we tried to get a brand that looks cool, that is, driving innovation and technology. But we don't want to be seen to be driving innovation at a risk to the customer. So it'd be seen as a safe pair of hands, and that we know what we're doing, that we're serious about security. And so it was a case of getting that sort of wrapped up in some sort of visual identity. And then just constantly reinforcing the values internally within the people that we got. But there's if you come to our offices are really nice offices, very shiny, a lot of tech stuff in it, and the colour scheme's all the same. All the photography and things that we use are all high quality. The videos are all high quality, and that has an effect that when we employ somebody in the company, whatever their job is, they immediately know that it has to be to high quality. And so there was a point in time when I noticed that because we've created this environment of like a high standard environment, that whatever people were doing, a proposal, a bit of marketing material, I noticed the sort of default quality was quite high on it. And then that's when I sort of felt as if we're getting somewhere with the culture. But it has to be protected. It has to be, everybody has to be constantly aligned with it. We're not big enough yet that it's going to take care of itself. But I think the early signs are there that we've got something which is quite good, and we've got a lot of people in the company that are really passionate about who we are as a business and all the values that we've got, and so they are sort of like the gatekeepers of the culture and the brand. And when we bring anybody new in, I sort of make sure they spend some time with them so they get an idea of what we're about, and that sort of stuff is important to me because I think it's really valuable. But yeah.
And I think we talked beforehand about that kind of perception within your industry as well. So I guess it's kind of trying to combat that. But I guess the value of the brand when it comes to potentially exiting, I think that's a big part of it. And you said you actually got an offer quite early on, sort of early. And was that because of the brand or just because of what you're doing was so innovative?
Yeah, I think I don't think the brand's had anything to do with any offers we might have had before. It's only really recently that we've actually began to get some brand recognition. I think our brand will become very important to the value of the business in the future. That's how we capture the trust that we've got, and the quality of the products and everything's captured within that brand. I think the offers that we had before were probably a combination of the customers that we had, our ability to install in Scotland for the most part, and that was probably it. Really, it was probably just a case of the infrastructure that we had.
And how easy or hard was it to turn down those sums? Because obviously it was a life-changing sum of money, but was it? Do you think actually this is just touching? Like there's so much more I could do with this.
I think I've always had a sense that there's the opportunity to create a really, really big, successful business here. I'm probably not that motivated by the numbers. Like I really don't spend that much time with the financial side of our business. It's more the potential of it, and people might say that and sort of like it's maybe like a bit of, it's maybe not true, but it really is the sense for me that I'm really excited by the sort of opportunity that is there for the company, and the types of products that we can build, and all the different markets that we could operate in, and the people that we can hire in the company, and building that culture and all that stuff really does get me excited, and that's the sort of stuff that would be in my mind anytime I'd get an offer for the business. The first ones are, even though they were less, they were not as big a number as some of the later ones, were probably the hardest, because that's the first time you're confronted by an offer of a significant amount of money, and you've got to come to peace. You've got to find some peace with the fact that you've said no to that, and then inevitably things go wrong after that, and you sort of start wondering if you made the right decision, and doubt starts to creep into your mind. You just got to focus and keep going.
And Ryan, tell us that the changes between being a founder to now being a CEO of a very successful company with a big team. What are the changes you've gone through personally to get there?
A lot of changes. That's probably been I think I'm unrecognisable as a professional person from when I started the company to now. I don't think I realised how much I would have to change. It's probably a good starting point. I think when I started the company, I probably thought all that was important was a good idea and getting some customers. And then as you then start recruiting people, you've got to learn how to trust people to actually do a job, which was difficult for me because I was so used to doing everything myself. It was really difficult at the beginning to try and allow people to do things for me. And then as you sort of develop, you've then got to develop a style which is enough to get people that are really talented to come and work in the company and stay in the company. You've got to learn all sorts of new skills, lots of new people skills, constantly be challenging yourself. I try to learn about as much as I can about business and marketing. I'm reading case studies all the time and people management, and it's been it's been a huge change. But probably the thing that I do most now is just constantly reminding people all the time about what we're trying to do, and trying to be a bit of a reference point to say just keep coming back to the sort of vision that we've got and making sure everybody's aligned on that, and trying to be, I don't get too carried away when we have a big success, and I don't get down and feel sorry for myself if something goes wrong, and try and see things over a long term view. But yeah, there's been, I think what I'm doing now is completely different from what I would have thought it would have been years ago. It's just I just try and bring some stability to the company, to our customers, and enthusiasm for the project.
Most importantly, you're getting more than 3 hours sleep a night now.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but
So, well, good luck on your 10-year anniversary next year. We're looking forward to seeing how you celebrate. We always finish the podcast by asking you, what are your guiding principles in business?
Means is trust. So I think of everything through the lens of trust. So we're trying to win customers' trust, and we're trying to keep their trust. So it's trust over profit for me all the time. I don't really get that bothered too much if we lose. I don't judge losing a customer on how much profit we've lost. If I find that we've done something, or I've done something that's lost the trust of a customer, that really bothers me, regardless of how much money they spend. And then that informs everything that we do after it. It informs how we build our products, how we market our products, how we sell them, how we deliver our services. Because if you're looking at everything you do through the lens of, we're trying to make sure we maintain that trust, it keeps you right. And so, yeah, everything that I do, everything that we do as a company is all about winning and maintaining trust.
Brilliant. Ryan, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks very much for having me on. Thanks.
Cheers.